Hello, everyone, and welcome to the San Diego Union-Tribune Festival of Books. I'm columnist Karla Peterson, and today I have the good fortune to chat with Karen Cushman and Ernesto Cisneros. Karen is the author of many books, including her most recent, The War and Millie McGonigle. And Ernesto is the author, oh, there's her book,
There it is.
War and Millie McGonigle, thank you. And then Ernesto's debut book came out last year. There it is, Efrén Divided. And we will be chatting today about understanding the past and the present through middle grade novels. So thank you so much, both of you, for being here. I really appreciate it. And I think we're going to have oodles of fun. So the first thing I wanted to ask you two is that your novels both have 12-year-old protagonists dealing with outsized problems that are really beyond their control. So I wanted to ask each of you to tell me a little bit about your book and about your protagonists and what they're dealing with. And Karen, I was going to start with you.
Okay. My protagonist is a girl named Millie McGonigle. She's 12 years old, and it's 1941. So one of the big things she's dealing with is the war in Europe and her fear that it's coming here. She's glum about the state of the world. She's gloomy because her grandmother has died. She's full of anxieties and fears, but learns to handle things with her resiliency, her family, and some hope. The book is set on South Mission Beach in San Diego, which is where my husband grew up. And for 52 years, I've heard his stories about reading comic books in his rowboat and fishing for perch and small halibut, watching the tides come in and go out, covering and uncovering the creatures that lived in the mud flats. And it sounded idyllic to me. And I wanted to set a book there. And I knew that I should put someone there who really needed that comfort, that peace, that solace, to help her through all of the issues going on in her life. So Millie McGonigle was born, and we'll find her in South Mission Beach.
Thank you. And Ernesto, what about you?
My main protagonist is Efren, and he's a character that I kind of created because I started writing Efren Divided in 2016 during the elections, and there was a lot of really horrific things being said about the Latino community. Mm. And then I was watching my students internalize this, and also my kids at home. So I wanted to offer a little bit of advice to kind of help the kids navigate the times and to see themselves in a positive light. And so Efren was born that way because I love the way that Efren sounded like a friend, and really the students needed a friend. In particular, I had 3 students that had lost a parent during the school year. Right in the middle of the school year, they had a parent taken away by ICE. And I was just blown away by just how they could still survive and keep going. It was just, they were amazing. But I also kind of was a little bit devastated as a teacher, because as a teacher, we want to be able to give the students the answers. And I didn't have any answers for them. And so Efren was my journey myself to try and figure out how can I help these kids too. And so Efren was pretty much there as a friend. And I know that seeing my students, they have so many responsibilities sometimes at home too. And growing up, I was very much, I was a latchkey kid, but I was also given the responsibility of taking care of my little brothers and sisters. My brothers, my sisters were a little older, just my brothers. And I remember going to pick them up on my bicycle, for example. So there we have a 10-year-old boy crossing the major intersections with a kindergartner and a first grader, both on their bikes. And that was just kind of routine. So that's a little bit where he was born from.
You know, it's interesting because both of you in these books are dealing with issues that are complicated and scary. Both your protagonists hear about things that frighten them on the news. Millie hears about the war through the radio, and Ernesto hears about these ICE raids from his friends and from the news. And they have so much bombarding them all the time. And kids today have so much to deal with too. And I know people often worry about how much young people can really process these difficult issues. So I was wondering what you have discovered in the process of talking to readers, talking to parents, talking to teachers about what young readers are actually able to absorb. Ernesto, what has been your experience on that?
I think that the most eye-opening experience I've had is as a teacher, because we do a lot of journal writing too, and we do creative writing in the classroom, and you'd be surprised the kind of stories that the middle school children are writing, and they write a lot about their own experiences and things that they're seeing and all things that they're questioning, and it's I mean, I just feel honored that I'm able to see that. But yeah, no, definitely I really believe that books are kind of like manuals. I know when we're born, we're not born with a manual with instructions, but I think that, I wish we were, that they came with them and that we had them. But I think that's what middle grade books are, and also YA books too. I think that they offer solutions for us. And so being young, I never really was much of a reader because I didn't have those books. I was looking for answers, and I just didn't see people having the same kind of thoughts that I did. And so I really think that they really do navigate towards the books. When I take them to the library, I love seeing what they're. I stand by the line before I check them out, and they show me and they tell me why they're reading, checking out those books. And most of the times, they're books that do deal with themes like this. And I think there's definitely a need, and the kids do gravitate towards them.
Karen, what's been your experience? Because with Millie, she's so frightened by so much of what she hears, but she wants to know. So what has your experience with young readers and tough topics?
As I was writing Millie McGonigle, I heard from a whole lot of young people, both in person and by reading. I read the high school and middle school newspapers. And there was a lot of talk about, during the COVID lockdown, about suicide and depression. When we're talking about 12-year-olds who are contemplating suicide because it's so fearful. And it's not only the COVID, it's politics and it's violence. And they're surrounded by it. They know it. They don't look in a book and say, "Oh, I didn't know that existed. Now I'm afraid." They're afraid to begin with. And I tell stories, and I think young people find what they need in the books. For example, I once heard from a 5-year-old girl whose mother read The Midwife's Apprentice to an older daughter, and the 5-year-old told me this was a book all about a cat and what the cat did. A high school ESL class in a poor neighborhood in LA thought it was a book about homelessness, the same Midwife's Apprentice. That's what they found in it. And courage to make those changes and those decisions that forget her name, Alice had to make to become the Midwife's Apprentice. And a young woman hospitalized after a suicide attempt wrote to me. She said she found in Catherine Called Birdie a model for finding ways to be herself when she felt hopeless and devoid of options. Now, I couldn't believe that. I'm not prepared to deal with that level of fear and fright. But that's what they found in these books. And I think that we should trust them, trust young people. I remember when I was young reading heavy-duty sort of romance books that my mother would have, these historical novels that were bottle strippers. I didn't understand half of it. I didn't even bother to ask my mother what was going on, because that's not what I was finding in the book that was of interest to me. The clothes, maybe, the music, something that happened. But I found what I could understand, and I think that's what young people do too.
Karen, you mentioned the pandemic, and both of you, your books did come out last year.
Yeah.
Very difficult time. Although neither of your books dealt with the pandemic, obviously, what were you hoping your books had in them that might have helped kids during that time? Karen, what were you hoping was in there for them?
Well, I was hoping that they would model for young people, that Millie would model for young people, not only that it's okay to be frightened and that you can grow out of it, but the importance of resiliency and taking care of yourself and facing issues head on, which she finally learns to do. I mean, it takes her quite a while, but she does, and she learns the importance of family, a family that she can lean on, and she learns the importance of hope, and that things will get better. The war didn't go away; everything didn't get solved. Her little sister didn't get cured, but things got better. And I think that the most important thing to me was that young people find a place that gives them strength and solace, the way Millie did with the Bay. That there are places that we can go and take a breath and let peace and quiet relax us some, so that we can go back to whatever is our struggles. And that was really important for Lily, and it's important for me. And I imagine that a lot of young people could find solace out there somewhere.
Well, I think if we could all just hang out in Mission Beach for a while, it would be
Well, not now. It's a lot different now from
not
how
this
it
minute.
was. Yeah, right.
Ernesto, Efren goes through so much in this book, and there's a lot of heartache, and there's stress, and he has friend problems, and he's trying to take care of his younger siblings, and he's under a lot of pressure. And yet, I think that there are a lot of survival lessons to learn there. So are there things that you hope that kids could have gotten from your book during the pandemic, which was such a difficult time?
Most definitely. I think part of the most difficult thing for me was not being there for the students in person, because as a teacher, I believe in teaching like the whole child, not just the subject matter. And throughout the year, that's how you make the connections with the students. You get to know them, and it's really rewarding. But I wasn't there in person, and so the book for me was really important because it also helped me, because I felt like it was my way of still being there for them. And I'm hopeful that during the pandemic, that students were able to pick up the book and feel seen, that they feel uplifted, inspired, and like Karen said, hopeful. Because I think that as authors, it's not. I think good books like Karen's, we don't trigger themes. We're not there to set up the triggers. We're there to help them navigate the waters. And so I have students who felt like they couldn't go outside the house, and I would talk to my students about different experiences, and some of them would say, "Oh, I'm spending most of the time in the pool," and they had a swimming pool to go to. I had other students that were living in apartments, and they literally had other families in the other room, and they couldn't leave their room, and they're trapped there for a whole year. And so books, I think, were their escape. It was their way of leaving. Efrén Divided takes place in the school, at the same school where they attend, actually, which is kind of funny. And it talks about their neighborhood. So I'm hoping I was able to give them a little bit of that feeling of being able to leave their homes, leaving their apartments, and walking down their streets. But mostly I just wanted them to feel hope. And just like with Efrén, I was trying to show them that there are things you can do. I still have students that are from mixed status families who still worry about their parents, especially during the pandemic. They're out in the fields picking things for us, making sure that we're okay, but nobody's really worried about them. And so they've got that worry and that stress. And I wanted them to feel seen and to feel hopeful. And so hopefully Efrén was able to help them with that a little bit.
I think you both wrote such great protagonists who had so many different human levels to them, and I know that you were hoping that those characters would help readers. But what did your protagonist do for you, Ernesto? What did you learn from Efrén?
Well, Efrén was an interesting character because he's half based on my experiences growing up, and he's also half based on my son. And what I kind of realized through my journey as writing Efrén and seeing how he developed and how he grew up, and I kind of watched him grow up. One, I realized that Efrén no longer belongs to me; it belongs to the world. So that's kind of nice. I feel like my son's in high school right now, and he's going to be going off to college in 2 months. And so I feel like I already kind of got a little glimpse of what that's going to be like by having Efren go off onto the world. But it was a lot of really positive reflection, and one thing I really got out of Efren that it was just a reminder to myself is that kids are wonderful human beings, and sometimes life has a way of kind of messing with that a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Yes, and so I had to remember what it was like to be more childlike, and now I'm actually trying to modify my life to be more like Efren because he sees the good in everything, and so I'm trying not to stay away from social media. I'm trying to stay away from the news, and I'm trying to be a little bit more like him as far as just being optimistic, and I really love that about the character.
He's such a great spirit, I think, and I felt the same way about Millie. So, Karen, what did you learn from Millie?
Well, I learned a lot about what not to do from Millie from the first part of the book. And I also learned to be open about what is frightening me and what is worrying me and anxious. And there's no way that I'm going to be able to handle that if I don't look at what options are or what opportunities there are, if I just sit in my own place and be afraid. So I really learned, as she learned, to be more open and a little more honest, and to open myself up to other people the way she did. She had to learn with her friend Rosie and with the handsome surfer that she had to open herself up to them in order to build a relationship. And I tend to be, an introvert, stay at home and make things up and write them down, so that I learned a lot about baby steps and changing and growing.
Karen, you've been writing for young readers for quite a long time now, and I was wondering what the rewards are for you of writing for this audience.
Oh, the rewards of writing for this audience. With this book, it's been very different because I haven't done school visits. I haven't spoken at a lot of big conventions where there are young people there, or even at bookstores, because we haven't done that yet. So I found that I really missed that connection with the young readers themselves, that I learned from them. I learned, like when the young girl told me about The Midwife's Apprentice being all about a cat. I mean, it never occurred to me that somebody would find that in the book, and she was explicit about explaining it, and I miss that kind of interaction. I also think that writing for children has brought me a fabulous community of writers, of children's book writers. I think I've met such wonderful people, and they're all open and honest, and they all care about young people, and they care about what they are offering them and what young people are taking from their work. And I find that really inspiring.
Ernesto, you had mentioned in an interview I read with you how wonderful the author community is. Tell me a little bit about that, and also just about young readers and writing for young readers.
Well, the writing community is amazing. A long time ago, when I was in college, I wanted to kind of try my hand at screenwriting, and after a few months, I kind of gave up on. I didn't give up on it. I decided not to enter that field because I didn't like the environment. It was super competitive, and people were not very supportive of each other. And it was exactly the opposite of the children's publishing world. Here, it just seems like authors were not really in competition with each other. We recognize that one person's success is everybody else's success too, and we're opening more doors for each other, and it's just been a wonderful, wonderful experience. I'm learning, making new friends. I can't wait till things go a little bit more normal, so I can actually meet people in person.
Yeah.
And give out lots and lots of hugs. But yeah, no, definitely, I've been learning a lot from my peers. And as far as the students, the students are wonderful. I, like Karen stated earlier, I myself too am a bit introverted, and I kind of keep to myself, and I don't really like attention or accolades and things of that nature. But I have learned through my students that that my work is important, and I kind of feel like the any success Effort Divided has, it's not really my success; it's success for the book, and it's part of my responsibility. Um, and like, for example, if I could hold up a few things. So I have a couple of letters that I've actually received from students. I framed them. I have, and some of them are just really, like little cards. I have, little illustrations and things like that. Here's one with the Mexican flag, and a lot of the children are sharing stories about their families, and some of them are heartbreaking. But they remind me that how important the story is to them, and how much they need to be seen. Um, and so I felt like it's now I feel like it is part of my responsibility to make sure I keep writing more Latino characters in my stories, and make sure that I carry that work on, because it is making a difference with kids.
Both of you, your writing careers have been interesting. Ernesto, you this was your first book, and you worked a long time to get published. And Karen, you published your first book later on after you'd had a different careers. For young people who are interested in perhaps writing as a career, what advice might you have for them? And Ernesto, I'm going to start with you. Besides don't be a screenwriter, I guess.
Oh my goodness! You know what? Honestly, it's the lessons that I've learned is, one, it's never too late, and I feel, I mean, Karen and I both started writing when we were both very young. Uh, it was maybe not as young as other authors, but we were both very young.
Totally.
But yeah, no, it's if you want to write, here's my thing, and I can only speak for myself. I wasn't a reader growing up, and that's the reason it took me so long. And it took me a long time because I needed to find my own voice. And that was the funny thing about this, is that after it's been about 16 years now of trying to find my voice, I finally realized that the other day I was talking to my agent about this. I found some of my earlier work, and I realized that my voice now is the same voice I used to have when I first started. And what happened, the reason I feel I wasn't published earlier, is because I kept trying to write like other people expected me to. And it wasn't my authentic voice. And it wasn't until I finally got enough confidence and I started to embrace my voice and liking my own voice, that things finally started happening for me. So for young people, I would say, you guys are the experts. Authors like myself, we pretend to be kids and we try and go into your minds, but really, we're not the experts. You guys are the experts. You guys are actually living the things that you're writing about. So, I mean, you are the experts. So just find your voice and know that there is a place and that everybody's voice matters. And we want to hear your stories too. And please share them with us.
And Karen, what about you? What messages might you have for young people who think they might want to write?
They want me to tell them some kind of magic formula that will turn them into writers and get their books published. And I refuse, because I don't have them as magic. I tell them, first of all, to read a lot. As Ernesto said, it's really important. If you want to write, you got to read a lot. You got to see what's out there. You got to see how other authors handle issues or problems, what you like in a book, what you don't like in a book, what you might want to write about. The second is to write a lot, and don't sit down and say chapter 1 of this huge series of books, just little pieces, little descriptions. It's like a kid who wants to play basketball. He doesn't go to the LA Forum and challenge the Lakers to a game. He spends years and years throwing the basketball in the hoop in his driveway over and over and over again. And that's the kind of writing that you need to do. And listen well. It's all your material out there. I read a quote from Mary Oliver, God bless her, who said, look around, pay attention, be astonished, and tell us about it. That's how you write.
That should be a bumper sticker. It would be a big
Isn't
one.
that great?
But
You have to have a very wide bar.
when we were talking before we started this interview, I know that both of you had things you wanted to ask the other, and Ernesto, you had something in mind you wanted to talk to Karen about. So it's time for you to take your shot.
Okay, sure. Karen, I know that you've had so many accolades and awards and successes in your life as an author. And my question for you is this: how do you balance the whole, for example, when you won the Newbery, how do you balance living in the moment and feeling the accomplishment and being content? And how do you balance that with having goals in the future? Like, how do you enjoy and embrace what you've accomplished and not let that and not start moving on to something else? Okay, now I got to do something else and not enjoy the moment and your successes.
Well, I think it comes and goes. The moments come and go. That for a while it would be all right now. Flowers were appearing at my doorstep, and letters and telegrams, and kids were calling me on the phone that they had looked up and they wanted to talk about things. So then you have to be there. But I would also go upstairs to where I was writing and get away from all that, where I was working on The Midwife's Apprentice. So that would drag me away from that. And then somebody would call and I'd have to have an appearance someplace, and come out of my room, put on tap shoes and go tap dancing around marketing. So it was back and forth. And that huge celebration of success and rewards doesn't last. I haven't won a Newbery since The Midwife's Apprentice. It's not like I have to deal with that all the time. So I can be now more in the moment. But then fears come in and I start thinking, oh my God, am I going to be only known for my first book? What does that mean? So that it's a balancing act all the time. And I'm not sure we're prepared for it. I felt like I was in Neverland sometimes, that Peter Pan was going to fly through the living room. That what was this that was going on? I was 50 years old. It was my first book, and I was not prepared for this. So I think you should be prepared for it, Ernesto. Who knows what's going to happen to you? And just stay yourself. And you found your voice. Keep your voice, learn to say no. Oh, that was something really important that I learned, to say no. And it protected me, and it helped that I didn't want to do some things, or that I had a book to write, but saying no was important. People want things, yeah.
And Karen, is there something you'd like to ask Ernesto or say about his book?
What I was going to ask Ernesto was how he's dealing with, as I said, the tap dancing aspect of getting a book out and showing up and talking about it and being the celebrity. But he's talked about that a little bit, and it sounds like he's not crazy about it, but he does it because it's important, which is, I think, what most of us writers do. There are some who are performers, but so yeah, this was supposed to be a question for you, Ernesto, and I answered it. That's a terrible thing to do.
Well, I do have another question for both of you, and this will be our last one. It went fast for me. I don't know about you, but I was wondering what each of you is working on now or thinking about working on. And Ernesto, I will start with you because you've mentioned another book.
Okay. So I have a book coming out in March. March 15th, I believe, and it's called Falling Short. And what I wanted to try and do was, I felt like I'm responsible for a lot of tears, providing a lot of tears for people, and I wanted to provide a few laughs to go along with it too. So this book is a little bit more humorous than Efrén Divided. It still has its moments. It's about two best friends who live next to each other, and they have this misconception that if they become more like each other, their lives are going to get better. One of my main characters, he's the smallest boy in middle school, and he doesn't get along. He doesn't really connect with his father, who was a jock in high school, and so he thinks that if he makes the basketball team, despite being the shortest kid in school, that he'll have a better connection with his father. The other boy, who is just a genius on the court, he believes that the parents are always fighting because of his grades. So he feels that if he becomes more like his friend and becomes more scholarly, that his problems will go away too. So they pretty much are swapping lives, trying to become each other in hopes of being able to fix all their situations at home. But again, and it doesn't sound as comical as I think but it has lots and lots of funny moments. I wanted to make sure Efrén Divided kind of took its toll on me physically and emotionally. I'm a method author, a writer, so I really try and channel each character, and it was very draining to go through that experience, especially with the Ama, because it was based on my mom, and so when you throw challenges and obstacles to your characters, it's kind of hard to do it when it's based on somebody So yeah, that's what's happening, and hopefully everybody enjoys it.
Well, we'll look forward to that in March. And Karen, do you have something brewing?
I am working on a book called Sally O'Malley Discovers the Sea. And Sally has run away from her job as a hired girl at a hotel in Oregon in 1894. And she hears someone say that she should go west. If I were running away, I would go west. Well, she starts to go west, and she thinks she's looking for the edge of the country, the end of the continent, the edge of the country. That sounds exciting to her, and the ocean and the sea. But that's not what really she's looking for, and she doesn't discover that until the very end of the book. And it took me a while to discover what it was that she really wanted to find. So I'm wrestling with her right now.
Well, wrestling often produces great results, so I'm looking forward to that, as we all are. And this is all of our time for today. I want to thank Karen Cushman. I'd like to thank you too, Ernesto, for being with us today. And for those of you watching, you can purchase their books and all of the books that we will be discussing in the festival through our indie bookseller partners at bookshop.org.shop.sdfob. And we would also love it if you would consider supporting the San Diego Council on Literacy, and that's at literacysandiego.org. And then finally, there's all sorts of fun stuff waiting you at the San Diego Festival of Books, and you can get to us at sdfestivalofbooks.com. And thank you so much, Karen and Ernesto and all of the book lovers out there. Thanks for being with us.
You're welcome, and thank you, Karla.
Yes, really appreciate everything you do.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.